Hi, Ray Dickey from South Carolina, Hudson Valley, CAI Association Help Now. We're in a lot of different states. I'm not going to bother going through them. I appreciate everyone being here. Before I introduce our panel, I like our topic. Dawn, I think I say that every time.
You
I mean,
do.
I do pick them, so it makes sense that I would like them. Amenities, make them work for you. I like this one because this is all about marketing amenities, and I don't know anything about it. Some of the topics I feel like I know a lot about. I've done them 1,000 times, but not this one. So I'm excited to have Ryan here. And then response to a critical incident. Stefan, and I'm going to say his name wrong today, and he's going to correct me. I told him, but Stefan, I caught a LinkedIn post that he put out there, and I thought how his team responded to kind of a critical incident was terrific. So we're going to have him also a little bit on towards the end. I'm going to tell you who Andrew and Dawn are in a second. Okay. If you are here for, and you guys are going to introduce yourself, so don't worry. If you are here, and I'm using the system in a different way today, so bear with me a little bit. I'm going to launch a poll. If you are here for CEUs, tell me which one you need. You guys could see the polls, right? Because the new system, the way I'm doing it, I'm going to do a pop-up. I can't live with the way it is. Okay. Now everyone's all over the place, but I'll fix it. If I close the poll before you have time to fill it out, don't worry, use your question feature. That's how you communicate with us today. And please communicate. And I'm looking for it, by the way, as I'm talking. I absolutely love communication from the audience. I love it. Please, I don't use anyone's name, so feel free to ask whatever you would like to ask. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this poll pretty quickly as soon as I move this other window that is in my way. And that's it. Like I said, this is a complicated system. Pain in the neck. If you're here from Florida, you're going to have to do a little bit of extra work. Just make sure you do it. You'll get an email from me telling you have to fill out a survey. If it takes you more than a minute, it's taking you too long. That being said, if you want a book, every quarter I put out a book, and it's all about the live streams. It's all about the live stream content. I like it. I don't know if my name's big enough. Dawn, I realize that my name is too big. So I'm going to make my name smaller than the next book. I mean,
I have mine in the back.
look how
I
big
just
my name
received a
is.
shipment.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So I'm embarrassed about that, but whatever. I didn't really think about it at the time. But yeah, the book's for free, and you can get you can get a PDF, and you can get an ebook, or you can get a hard copy. So use your question feature and say, hey, Ray, I want a book, and I'll make arrangements to get you one. That being said, we're finally here where we get to introduce our panel, and let's start with who I see first, and that is Stefan.
Thank you very much for having me here. Work for First Service Residential. Been with the company for over 10 years. Been in community association management for over 16 at this point.
Awesome, and I appreciate you being here. Ryan, great to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks, Ray.
Tell us a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Ryan Dorr, president and founder of Strategic Club Solutions. Work with private clubs and communities across the country from a variety of services with executive search, marketing, and strategic planning.
Andrew was telling me he saw me, several years ago?
Right.
Be honest, Andrew. Do I look a lot older?
The first time I met you, Ray.
All right. Andrew, please introduce yourself.
I'm Andrew Stoutenberg. I know the right thing to say, I guess. With Reserve Advisors, been doing this myself about 12 or 13 years. Company's been doing reserve studies for over 30 years nationwide. Myself here in Austin, Texas.
And Reserve Advisors introduced me to Ryan, so it was much appreciated. So last but not least, Dawn.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn Becker-Durnan. I'm a CIRMS, which is a Community Insurance Risk Management Specialist. We at Acrisure specialize in insurance, all types of insurance, but in our practice, we only focus on community associations. And I'm really excited about today's topic in connection with large-scale communities, because that is something that we know a lot about.
Yeah, and we don't always do a lot of stuff that is kind of for large-scale communities. So I was really excited about this topic. And, we have a small group today too. So audience, feel free to ask questions. And if you want to come on and ask a question, I can also make that happen. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I don't use people's names. So feel free to ask whatever you would like to ask. I could make a mistake. So bit of a disclaimer. Don't ask me anything too top secret. There is a packet with everyone's information that you could download. Call me, email me if you can't download it. I'll be happy to send it to you. With
And
that
Ray,
be, yeah,
I just want to say, so the audience, don't be shy because we actually on panel can't see your questions. Only Ray can. We don't even know
yeah.
who's here.
No, the panel cannot see the questions. That's why they truly are private. I do the disclaimer though, because when you do these things, you're always one button away from making a mistake. And you shouldn't be asking me something that you're that worried about anyway, but you should feel comfortable asking. And I haven't made a mistake yet since it's been like 5 years, but you should feel comfortably asking me basically whatever you want to ask. Thanks, Dawn. I didn't realize that some people may not even know that. That being said, I'm going to ask Andrew and Stefan to come back, and I'm going to have Dawn hang out because she loves amenities, loves them, being in the insurance business. Ryan, I didn't do a lot of pre-work on this because I'm not familiar with the topic, and I was afraid like the marketing advice would be pretty similar to general marketing advice. My first question is, I'm assuming that marketing amenities for homeowner associations is different than any other kind of marketing.
Absolutely. So if you think about it, it's really about providing value for what the homeowners are paying for, right? And so are you doing programming around those amenities to activate those spaces and make people, really creating those moments for homeowners to connect with each other, invite guests, potential homeowners, that sort of thing. So the marketing side of things is really about driving engagement. And we do a lot of this work in the non-community clubs as well as the communities that have clubs and these larger amenity spaces. And so it's really about activating spaces. It's about activating amenities and connecting people within the community.
And just so the audience knows, you guys are involved in marketing amenities outside the HOA business also. This is what you
Correct.
guys do. HOA
Yep.
is part of it, correct?
Yep, absolutely. So both, if you think about your traditional private club, country club, city club, athletic club, those types of things, it's you're really marketing to an existing community of members, right? Whether they're homeowners, private club members, or members of some other group or association type thing. So it's really about activating the community and making those connections because that's what makes membership sticky, right? So and especially in the community space, especially large scale communities, you've got a lot of people. Some people are seasonal, and you want to make sure that there's opportunities to connect those folks and that they see value in owning a home in the community.
Now, I think I'm going to ask you a hard question. I didn't prepare any. And just so you know, the
Sure.
panel, I almost never give them a heads up on what we're going to talk about. It's very, very rare. So Ryan has no idea. Ryan, I guess I want to ask you, and I hope it's a fair question. Why can't associations do this themselves? This seems like, somebody goes to live in a homeowner association and there's a golf course. Um, why do you need marketing? I know they do because you're very busy.
Yeah, so it really just depends on the size and scale of the community and the team that's there. We do fully outsourced marketing for these clubs and communities, or we help them come up with a strategy and their internal team executes them. So the scale runs the gamut, right? So it just depends on the bandwidth of the team that's on site and the focus on how rich those amenities are, right? I'll take an example from a community. If you're just a community with a pool, no lifeguard, there's no food and beverage, you probably don't need to really market the space, right? It's there if people want to use it, great. But if it's more of a full service experience, like a lot of these large scales have, where maybe you've got a beach or you've got a full pool with a snack bar or a restaurant, outdoor dining, that sort of thing, you really want to help drive that engagement because that's a fixed cost to operate that. So the more utilization you have, the more you're kind of covering those fixed costs of having staff and servers and bartenders and food preparation and things like that. So it really just depends on what the overall goal and mission is for the community to and how active those spaces are and how really truly amenitized they are versus just having something available, right? Like an unmanned pool.
Dawn, just to convey to the audience that maybe isn't familiar with how fancy some of these amenities are, you're out and about like I am. Why don't you just push
Uh,
that to the audience for me a little bit?
so some communities have spas. you can get massages, you can get your nails done, you can get your hair done. Restaurants, as Ryan mentioned, that's a big one. We see a lot where it's only exclusive to the club members and their guests. So you don't have the general public. There's a lot of them with gym facilities. So training, personal trainers, tennis instructors, that runs the gamut when it comes to that pickleball. Everybody loves their pickleball these days. I also would say swimming and beaches, wherever there's limited access to something that's a unique feature, is always something that's going to draw in the homeowners to the community.
And then if we have time, we're also going to talk about the private public connection. I didn't tell you that, Dawn. Some are also open to the public. You know, Ryan, just to push even a little further so the audience knows the scope, I recently visited an association. They had everything you could imagine going on, pickleball, tennis, and they had a tournament. So there was an actual pickleball tournament going on with an audience. There had to be 100 people in the audience. They had a restaurant. I'll let you take it from there, but this is like running a whole other, it's like being a restaurant manager, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, in some cases, it's like running a full service resort. The only downside is you're limited to the people that live inside the gates that can use it, right? And so that's how some of these are. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the Trilogy properties, but Shea Homes develops those. They have a common model with a public restaurant that is available to the homeowners, but it's open to the public as well. And then their golf courses are oftentimes a preferred access for homeowners and then open to the public. But then they've got an entire lifestyle amenity set that's all just for homeowners inside the gates with pools, restaurants, different amenities, fitness, spa, all those types of things like Don was talking about. So there's a variety of different models to kind of help determine what, in the case of Trilogy, they're in the home building business, right? They're in the business of selling homes. So that's really a marketing vehicle for them to use. Sometimes the club will convert that restaurant and golf course to private. Sometimes they'll leave it semi-private. So there's a variety of
So,
different value propositions there.
all right, so let's start giving some advice out for people that don't want to hire you, Ryan, but they need a little bit of help. Okay. And I'm just going to jump ahead here. I broke it into these segments, Ryan, and you could go in any direction you want: engagement, owner feedback, messaging, and conveying owner value, like public visibility, digital content, data for owner feedback, and engagement. Where do you want to start? Let's start giving some advice to our managers out there that want to not only get people to show up, but I guess do it the right way, because that's what we're talking about also, right? A positive
Yep,
experience.
absolutely. And so, you really got to think about what's the value proposition for the dues or the fees that people are paying or assessments, depending on what your terminology is. And so that's really the driver behind why you want to engage the membership or homeowners in this amenity usage, right, and activation. And so, because if they're not using it, they don't see value in it, and then they're wondering what their check is going for every month, right? Or when you're, doing assessments for reserves or things like that, where is all this money going? Well, it's to maintain these items that positively impact your property value, right? And so it's also from a homeowner marketing standpoint, right? If you want to sell more homes, whether you're new homes or there's turnover, you want to make sure that these are viable amenities to attract potential new homeowners, which also helps to prop up those property values and things like that. So I think really that just homeowner awareness that these amenities are available to them is an important piece. Getting feedback, as you mentioned, is also important, right? Engaging them and how was your experience at the beach today, or whatever that looks like.
So what I want to do is, great. We've already determined that they're super important, right? Give some advice on how to do those things. So we want to give some concrete advice
Sure.
people can walk away with.
Okay.
So you threw three things at me. So you're going to start off with engagement, which is basically the same as owner
Yep.
value. Do you agree?
Yep.
Getting people to
Agree.
come and participate.
Yep.
So name one tool that maybe a lot of associations overlook to build engagement, just one part of it.
So text messaging is a great tool to engage folks in attending certain events, right? Everybody's got a phone, everybody's on it. You can also use social media as a great way. We like social media from a storytelling perspective, right? Because then you create a little bit of that FOMO. Maybe they don't come to this event, but here, look what we did the last weekend at the pool or with the pickleball tournament. Using those platforms to do that. Some people still like to use email. We're starting to see a lot of drop off in email engagement. Video is another powerful tool. Again, from that FOMO social media integration, showing people what they missed out on. So that's a great part about, kind of storytelling. FOMO is fear of
Uh,
missing out, by the way. So.
oh, I was gonna test Dawn to see if she knew what it was before you told us. Jumping back when you're talking about like Facebook and posting photos and things like that, what you're trying to do is, I assume, because we do the same thing for what I do for a living, I want people to feel like they missed out on something. Is that what you're talking
Absolutely.
about?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
like, darn it, I missed out on all the fun. So, and you find that's a very powerful tool. Do you find a lot of associations skip that part?
They do. Yeah, I think there's a lot of, and part of that's a resource thing, right? Who's got a good phone or do you have a good photographer? Um, there's also some people are concerned about, photo sharing and privacy. So make sure that if that's a concern for you in the state that you're in, make sure that you're getting people to sign off a little waiver as they check into the event. Hey, we might use your photo on social media kind of thing. So, but those are all great reasons and ways to engage the audience.
Yeah, and if anybody from the audience is interested in like how I do with the chapters with the photos, is I always make sure people are looking at the camera, or I don't use the photos. That way I feel confident that they know. You were also text messaging compared to emailing. Do you see a big result? And what happens if you overdo one or the other? What's more powerful?
So the email is good for just general sort of awareness. If you're looking to engage somebody in an action, the text message can sometimes be a little more effective because they don't have to scan through, kind of an e-newsletter with a whole bunch of stuff in there, right? So if you wanted to send out a targeted text message to say, hey, don't forget to sign up for the 4th of July event this weekend, click here to register, they can click and engage directly there. Also, if your association is using an app with push notifications, that can be another way to drive engagement for those signups, right? And again, it's the nice thing if you're using an app that starts to create that habit of people getting into the app and using it more frequently, so it's a better kind of central touch point. So think about it this way: you've got to have static areas for people to go to get information, like your website, like the app or something like that, and then you've also got to do some outward push to engage people to remind them, hey, don't forget this is coming up. Don't you want to sign up, kind of thing.
I try to find, like, I look at the website exactly how you just used it. I don't use it's a marketing tool, but I'm pushing people there. I'm not counting on the website drawing attendance. Do you
Right.
agree? I think a lot of
Yeah.
associations just depend on the website. Agree or disagree?
Agree. Agree. Yeah. It's a static place that they assume people are going to go to, right? And you can't. It's good to have it as a central location that people can go to get information. Um, but if you're looking to drive engagement, having a static site, hoping people are going to remember to come check you out with all the other noise that's going on in their inbox, is unlikely, right? Unless they're well informed or connected in the community and their friends are telling them to go there and do things. But um, that's where you really driving that traffic through those other platforms we were talking about can be really effective.
Dawn, so I'm gonna tell me if you agree or disagree. I'm gonna ask Ryan about the frequency, you're muted still, of emails and text messages and how not to go too far. What do you think he's gonna tell me? Do you think he's gonna tell me most people go too far, Dawn?
With amenities, I don't know. If it was general type business, I'd say yes. Probably not, though. I don't think they go too far with amenities. I think that makes everybody happy.
Really? See, I disagree. I think he's gonna tell us that people email and text too much. Ryan, give us some advice on the frequency. How often should we be using these tools?
So frequency wise, our philosophy is you have a scheduled distribution uh, timing that you do. So every Monday afternoon, every Thursday afternoon, this is the content that's delivered at those scheduled times because you teach the consumer behavior of when new things are going to be coming out, right? So that's typically the most important. And then when you have something really important, you want to do a kind of a shock in, uh, more of a pop-up type communication. Those can be more effective because they're not expecting them, right? But you don't want to do those a ton. Those are typically for like a town hall meeting or a big event or something along those lines that you want to, or hey, there's been a water main break or something like that, where you're trying to communicate something effective or important. But generally speaking, having that scheduled content that goes out at certain days at certain times, um, we find is usually the best because then if people aren't, oh my gosh, it's another email from the association, right? Oh my gosh, there's another,
Yeah.
This is all just
I,
noise, right?
I agree 100%. And then somebody's asking me to define a larger neighborhood. I guess you had mentioned that at some point. I don't remember. Kind of a hard question, right? Because I'll go back to Dawn really quick. Dawn, the amenities don't always exactly correspond to the amount of people that live there, right? It's
Yes, that's true. Now I have a community that is a large scale community. It's not fully built and it may never be, but their size is large as far as physical size and the amenities and the types that are there. But for insurance purposes, we usually classify a large scale community as one that has over 2,000 units.
okay. Ryan, do you agree with me on that? Like I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to get back into the marketing, but like when we talk about amenities and what's available to owners, it doesn't always relate to size, right? It may relate to economics maybe, or does it correspond to anything?
Yeah, there's no real formula. I mean, we've seen small communities with 300 homes that have full amenities, right? Where they've got a golf course and they've got, a restaurant and some event space and, pickleball and racket sports. And we've seen them with 3,000 homes that have those amenities. Sometimes the scale of those might be slightly different, but depending on the size. The challenge, though, is the economics of maintaining those assets is a much heavier burden on the smaller community than it is on a larger community. So, but we've seen it across the board where you've got fewer homes, lots of amenities, also lots of homes, lots of amenities. So there's no real right or wrong formula, but if you're dividing among 2 to 3,000 homes, the cost
Right.
per homeowner is much different
Sure.
than it is over 300.
Now, audience too, like everybody's been really shy this summer. I noticed with the comments, but if you're having a problem with a particular amenity, just send me a note through the question feature, and we'll talk about marketing that particular kind of one. Because we're not going to get to everything today, and we're going to have Ryan come back also. Today we're going to talk about generalities, but we may have Ryan come back and just talk about pickleball, or just talk about golf, or just talk about this or that if he'll come back. But Dawn and I will convince him to come back, so don't worry about it. Ryan, as far as I want to talk a little bit about sometimes the emails are too long. Sometimes the text messages are lousy. Dawn's nodding because we get a lot of emails and text messages, Dawn and I, because our emails are around a lot. Talk a little bit about look, if you screw up and you send bad content, you just wasted your time.
Right. One strategy we've seen that works really well to kind of find a good balance is that instead of, like, say you have an event coming up, right? And there's all this copy in the email body that just takes up space. If depending on your email platform, not all of them have this feature, but if you can just give a really brief snippet intro with a link for more, then that way people can kind of scan the email and click on it to engage for more details or to sign up if they want to. That way you're not just filling their inbox with just this long copy that somebody's got to scan through. Also doing headers of different topics. These fully amenitized groups, you've got athletics, you've got pickleball, you've got lots of different things going on, right? So there's a lot of information to cover. You might have 8 or 10 or 12 different kind of amenities or areas that you're promoting. They might have different, you might also do, some clubs and communities will do like a chef's corner, or pro tips, or, that type of stuff where you've got more interesting content, right? You're not necessarily promoting an event or something, but it's content you want people to read and engage with. And so sometimes those get intermixed within the noisy stuff, and people don't always get to it. So we still find a lot of folks see value in doing either a digital or printed newsletter.
Can I
Um,
ask you something though? Because I was
yeah,
going to ask you about that. Hold on one second. And this may not be popular, but I'm going to say it. And Dawn, you tell me what you think. I hate printed newsletters. I think they have, and maybe you'll tell me something different. Besides the fact of showing people what they missed, I think managers are just sick and tired of making them. I think they're a pain in the butt for everybody. And I don't think people hold on to them to find out what's going on anymore. But you know what, Dawn, do you agree or disagree?
I kind of disagree, Ray.
Yeah, see, there
Personally,
you go.
I enjoy the newsletter. I enjoy, especially if they, the certain columns, who's new to the neighborhood, what's going on. I think it could be overkill if it's on a monthly, but a quarterly is always a great thing to kind of keep fresh. There are communities, especially the larger scale, that we see almost do a full print magazine where it is a brochure. They have advertising, everything goes into it. That could be a little complex, but it depends upon how fancy. And I also think it depends upon who's in your community as well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy you disagreed with me, Dawn, because I'm going to bounce this back to Ryan. This is what's hard about marketing these amenities, right? You got a guy like me. I have no interest in the newsletter. Dawn wants the newsletter. Ryan, tell us about, I know you were going there and I interrupted you, but yeah, tell us about newsletters. What's the effectiveness of them and how do you feel they should be used for marketing an amenity?
So the reality is there's so much noise on this that the simple newsletter can be pretty effective. And especially if you've got an older demographic, they still like some of that paper. And I say older demographic, I'm putting myself in that, like over 50, right? So, um, but I think, and it also gives people somewhere to go. There's also, if you put interesting content in there, as Dawn was talking about, it helps to tell the story and connect the community beyond just, hey, what's coming up for events or things like that. So it can be costly. So, as Don mentioned, some people sell advertising to help offset that cost. And because it's in the community, a lot of clubs and communities will distribute a digital copy. But if you want a printed one, come pick one up in the clubhouse, right? You don't have to add the mailing cost, especially the postage going up again. Or you could potentially do a mail drop in the mailroom or put some in the mailroom for people to just pick up. So you may not have to print one for everybody
Right.
that way, because the reality is, right, everybody consumes content differently. So you've got to hit on these multiple platforms with a newsletter, with text messaging, with email, with social media,
Okay.
because everybody wants, is kind of on a different platform, or they prefer to consume their content in a different way. So
Okay. So
it's kind of that four walls marketing idea in the modern age, right? So it's not literally the
what
wall.
was the, well, hold on a second. What was the term you used? And then I want to jump onto something else, but what was the
Oh,
term
sure.
used?
Four walls marketing, right? That was a term I remember from back in the days where you want to really engulf the consumer with all the different marketing you can. This is just on multiple platforms. So
Okay. By the way, someone in the audience, of course, said Dawn's always right. I don't know if that's true, audience. It could, we'll go back and I'll play all the 500 hours of videos. Dawn's got to
I'm
be
not
at least,
always right, but when I am wrong, I do accept it. I'm here to learn, and I do appreciate sometimes being learned. I think wrong. I think that's how I really do grasp content.
but somebody, there's always like Dawn fans, Ryan, always. They're like so quick to jump on me all the time. It's really funny. And I appreciate it, audience, because I like seeing the comments. Um, I love data, Ryan. I mean, like I'm kind of in the business of getting people to show up. So today I didn't get as many people to show up as I usually do, and I'm going to try to figure out why, right? That's all about data and owner feedback.
hmm
Sometimes I'm a little worried though, Ryan, because I feel like what good is my data if I'm only getting data that people that like what I do? Like if I send a poll to everyone that watches my live streams on a regular basis and say, "Do you like my live streams?" I'm going to be like, hooray, everybody. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of using polls and feedback and how important it is to do it the right way?
yeah. So we're big, strong believers in both real-time feedback as well as kind of an annual feedback tool. So in the real-time feedback, believe it or not, those QR codes that made a resurgence during COVID are great to have around at different amenities. Hey, tell us about your experience in this amenity. Just scan the QR code. You can have them on tables. You can put them in chick covers if you're doing full service food and beverage, or you've got a server or attendant that's interacting with you. Um, but having those, having them in restrooms, right? Leave real time feedback about your experience in the community. That's a great way to do it. And you can link it up to like a Google form or a Teams form or something like that, where you can ask them a couple questions, and super low cost, easy data gathering tool. So
Wow. You know what? I never thought about using QR codes. I don't know, Dawn, if you've ever seen this for feedback. Sure, I see QR codes all over the place for menus.
Yes, but I'm wary of QR codes. I
Yeah.
just see too much abuse with scams and fraud, so I worry about them.
Ryan,
Sorry, I do.
Dawn
hopefully
makes
somebody's
everything.
not inside your
Dawn,
gates spamming
Ryan,
your.
Dawn makes everything unfun. I was actually thinking the same thing, but for this session, I'm leaving it out. But wah wah, yes, Dawn, they could be abused, and be careful because
That's why
you
she's
know,
the insurance person. She's trying to
I
manage
know
risk,
that's
right?
it's her job. It's her job to know these things for her clients. But it's kind of like wah wah. Okay. All right, Dawn.
So those are things that we like to see using just inside the community, because hopefully it's just your residents that are in there, right? But the other option is to via email or through the app. You can send a link for surveys. Some software programs have. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but there's basically, if you came in and had a reservation yesterday, it will automatically send you a survey. How was your experience at dinner last night, kind of thing. There's a couple different tools with that depending on your point of sale system. But otherwise, we like the annual feedback as well, where it's not situational. It's overall, how was your experience with the pool, with the pickleball courts, with and just getting some highlights on that. Just because that, as you're doing your planning and budgeting, if people are starting to get feedback that the courts are
Right.
cracked or the nets are damaged or whatever, those types of things, you can start to plan for some of that stuff in your reserves and in your expenses. So
And keep the polls short.
yes,
I think what, 3 questions, maybe 4. That's it. Would you agree?
yeah, yes.
And then don't be
On
also
the
upset about the feedback you get, audience, because most people that like things, a lot of times they don't do the survey. So you gotta, if you
correct,
get some bad answers, that's the value of it.
yeah.
Ryan, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but do you agree that don't be upset about the survey results? It's not necessarily a complete reflection on what people think.
Well, and a lot of managers we talk to are worried about doing a
Yeah.
survey because they're afraid of what the feedback's going to say. But the reality is, you can't proactively be doing your job if you don't know where those outliers are, right? And it's kind of the 80-20 rule, right? So we both look at what's the total response rate, how many people within the community completed it, and then of that, within those results, how did those shake out, right? If only 30% of the community responded and 20% of that 30% are upset, that's not necessarily representative of the whole community. We really try to push folks to get up into that 50, 60% participation. So you've got a much more relevant data set. And which is hard to do when you've got a lot of homeowners, right? To your point, no news is good news is kind of the tact most people take. If they don't engage in a survey, then you almost have to assume that they're fine with the way things are.
Yeah, I mean, I like surveys, but the way I look at them is you have to have a big enough of an audience to pull from, or they're not any good. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? If you
Agreed.
get like 5 people respond,
Yeah.
you could just as well get an email just for suggestions and things like that. Um, I want to talk a little bit about. Well, let me jump to Dawn. I like to keep Dawn. I don't like Dawn to fall asleep or make sure she's paying attention, so I like to jump over to her. And Dawn right now is just chopping at the bit to throw insurance stuff at every aspect of
all the
this.
time.
We're gonna give her like a minute to do some insurance because she can't help herself. But Dawn, how many of the amenities are public and private, would you say? You would know. I
So,
really,
mm, I'd say it's like 75% private, 25% public. And I would say that ones that do have public, not everything is going to be public access. There are also communities, which I don't think this has been touched on. There are communities that have certain amenities that will allow neighboring communities to use that. And I'm not talking about a master sub relationship where there's a true, corresponding relationship there. This is more of, we're talking about, somebody across town who says, I love your amenities. We'd love to join and pay towards the insurance, pay towards the maintenance. Would you allow us to join?
I'm saving Ryan for another one on logistics. So that's I. So I didn't know. Like, I'm surprised, Dawn, that it was 20. That you said 25%. I'm surprised it's that high. Ryan, what have
Yeah.
you found for? Is it 25% of do you? Is it that high? That's a lot. I mean, Dawn would know.
Yeah, I mean that would surprise me based on our experience. I would think it's more like in the 15 to 20%, if
Okay.
that. And really, it's kind of like the example I gave you about the community that's got like a public restaurant or a public private golf course type situation. Those would be the bigger examples where maybe they're community controlled, but they're not exclusive to the homeowners. But those they are more rare than they are the norm, I would say. And then
All right.
obviously what John described with the shared access is something that we've seen occasionally as well. Not super common, but it does happen, especially if
So
there's water access, like around a
Mhm.
lake or boat or waterfront type thing. So
so the marketing is going to be different for the private and public. And then I'm going to ask you 3 questions in a row. Is the marketing going to be different for the public and private? And if it is different, boy, you got to be careful because I could see you marketing it one way to the people outside and the owners could get mad and all this other kind of stuff. Like, can you touch upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so golf is probably the biggest example where you would have a different message for non-residents versus residents, because you're really trying to. The only reason you would really have that is there's not enough demand within the residents to support the operating costs of the golf course. So you're really looking at that outside play to help fund that. And so whether it's demand, pricing, timing, I mean, there's all kinds of different situations you can get in there where the homeowners want preferred access. So maybe it's you're pushing tee times and off peak times, or but you're really trying to engage them to come and use the amenity, even though they're paying for it a la carte versus paying for it, either as part of their dues. And in most cases, golf courses have additional access fees for residents as well. So, but yeah, obviously it's a different message because they don't live inside the gates. You're really trying to bring them in to take advantage of using those amenities.
Andrew, why don't you jump back here so you're on here when we need you? Thank you. Question we have from the audience. Question: we have limited amenity space and what you would call a smaller community. We have a large pool and a small kids pool. We have an open area that could hold something new. What are the best additions based on your risk and what homeowners want? I think they're asking. Well, I'll just ask the question, Ryan. Do you make suggestions also like how to make amenities more appealing? Do you find that a lot of associations lack, and we're probably not going to get to it today, but do you feel a lot of associations lack on features they should have or programs with their amenities?
It really just depends on the community, right? And who your demographic audience is in the neighborhood. As they're describing, if they've got a kids pool and a regular pool and there's a space for something new, is that a playground area? Is that I'm sure Don
Oh,
might cringe when I
you
say
know what,
playground.
Ryan? I think they're asking like, what would be your suggestion on what they could put there? They have this open space between the kids pool and the larger pool, but I'm sure you would have to have more
Sure.
data, but can you take it
Yeah.
from there?
Yeah. So, yes, we do.
Sorry, Ryan. They have a
Yeah.
playground. Go ahead. I
Okay.
won't interrupt
There
you.
you go. So, some communities are putting in those cabanas for rent where you've got a little bit more of a shaded private space. There's different, you could put dining tables there depending on what your sources are for food service out there. I mean, it would be, again, you'd have to look at the demographics and what else is included in the neighborhood. What's a missing gap? Maybe that's just conveniently located by the pool, or maybe it's something that accents or complements the pool. Really just depends on what they're going for.
I really appreciate that question, audience, because I realize that's a whole part of the topic, like I didn't think about, or this topic. Have Ryan come back and talk about like how you could change your amenities or features that you can add that would make them more appealing. Ryan, I have to watch our time, but as far as marketing goes, and I know we didn't dive too deep, and I think we will based on the background I get from the audience or the questions I'm getting or comments right now. What's your kind of words of wisdom here? Just sticking with the marketing of amenities. Is there anything we haven't touched upon?
No, I think it's just really important that that the association itself is focused on communications and marketing around utilizing and engaging with the community and the facilities and amenities that are available there. Their dollars are going to fund them, so why not engage them in the process to give them a positive experience, so that they want to continue living there, continue funding those amenities, and continue to engage with their neighbors and in these amenities.
And like you didn't pay to be on the live show. I'm not doing a commercial for you, but sometimes I think managers are asked to do too much. Right? And I know we're going to
Agreed.
jump off this topic, but you have a manager and now they're supposed to be a marketing expert, right? They got to know everything else in the world, but they're supposed to. And I just think it's a lot to ask. If you're a board and you have these amenities, maybe you're asking too much of your manager because not everybody can do everything and they need a little bit of help sometimes.
Yep.
With that being said, don't go anywhere, Ryan. Andrew, I appreciate you with the connection. I want to give you a chance. Are amenities and playgrounds and things like that, how do they relate to reserves, and do all amenities relate to reserves?
Yeah, sure. I love long answers, but my short answer is absolutely it relates to reserves. For a lot of these HOAs, especially if they don't have a lot of private infrastructure, this is some of their most capital intensive assets that they need to maintain. And just a point to make on that question of, hey, we're thinking about adding something that comes up somewhat regularly with our clients. And what seems at times to be forgotten is once we've added a new asset, we now need to think of our liability from a reserve standpoint for future replacement. So it's not just we're going to add this new amenity. We have some surplus cash. We've had some good operating profit. Let's spend it. We need to think about long term. So just something to always keep on mind. Not trying to steer away from that, but you want to look at that whole picture. But yeah, amenities are critical from a reserve standpoint.
And I really appreciate you guys making the connection. That was really great for me. Dawn,
Of course.
really short. Just
Well,
some basic insurance.
I'm really glad Andrew's here because reserve studies are so essential in a large scale community. And in fact, we really can't move forward without them. It's such a great picture of the roads because often a large scale community is going to have private roads. Deterioration of those assets can obviously lead to a claim. And we've also had communities that can't keep up with the maintenance on their amenities. And so they'll take the amenities away or close them down. You want to talk about complaints and lawsuits. Well, taking something away is just as bad as adding something.
Yeah, I mean, people are mad that our pool isn't open 24 hours because there's somebody that wants to swim at 3 a.m. All right, Ryan, we're definitely going to have you come back because there's so much more detail we can go into, correct? We didn't even touch upon everything. Stefan, can you jump on? Andrew, reserve advisors, I just wanted to have you here just because I wanted to have the reserves in there because I think people forget sometimes that amenities are complex. Things change. So they want to check with a reserve specialist on that. Accurate, Andrew?
Very accurate. Yeah, thanks for having us here this morning.
Thanks for being here. Ryan, I wouldn't mind if you could stay on in the background to the very end, because sometimes people pop up at the very end. And if there's anything you thought about that we didn't mention, you know what I would really like to do, Ryan, really quickly, since I'm not so familiar with this topic, have you come back at the very end if I forget, make sure you come back like 5 minutes to the end and give me some of the other topics that we could do in more detail that you feel our HOA and board members could walk away with something that they could use, right?
Sure.
Maybe you want to come back and you want to talk about text messages. Maybe you want to talk about emails, whatever you want to do. I really want to teach our board members and managers how to market their amenities. But thanks.
Sounds great.
Dawn, I'm going to keep you here. Dawn, did you see, I didn't send you the link, but did you happen to see the LinkedIn the LinkedIn link that I saw that had me invite Stefan here?
I did see it. I'm not really big and active on LinkedIn, but I did see the link.
Okay, awesome. It is included in the packet. So if you download it, you will find that LinkedIn post. So Stefan, you've already introduced yourself. So thank you so much. I'm just going to run through things kind of quickly so you could dive into the details if that's okay. Okay. And there's
Absolutely.
like 5 items here. A car struck a light pole in a tree. Before the first responders have even been notified, your team was already on the scene. You guys assessed the situation. You took action. You identified the need to alert EMS. You alerted the electric company. You closed off a section of the roadway. You safely directed traffic until the first responders got there. And I just added that once again until EMS. You guys took all these steps. Tell me, am I close to what happened? So you tell me from your perspective, and you're the manager, right?
Absolutely, yes. And you're pretty close in all that. Of course, everything happens on a Friday afternoon, late Friday. That's when everything's going to drop on you. We happened to be in the office. Somebody came in and said, "Hey, by the way, somebody ran into a light pole in a tree." They turned around and they were like, "No one called 911 as of yet." So me and my assistant manager, we drove out there. And the biggest thing is as you're driving up, and I do have a little bit of law enforcement experience in my prior life before getting community association management, was always stay calm. We're driving up. I'm assessing the situation. I see the car in the middle of the roadway. I see the light post is down. So you're taking all this in as we go along. So when we get there, we start having the conversations with the individual, and you make an assessment at that point. So at that point, we knew 911 hadn't been called. I had already started a conversation with the person who was involved, and there was actually, to what I thought was possibly on the DUI, I instructed my assistant general manager to actually let 911 know that we might have somebody who's under the influence per Delaware law. And at that point, now it's just working to make sure that we're safely cordoning the area off, because we did have live wires in the ground. We had part of the roadway blocked off, and working with local law enforcement or waiting until they got here, and then taking their instructions really on how to move forward to assist them.
So, Stefan, your law enforcement background provides
A
you with
little bit.
such an okay, it doesn't fine a little bit. Provides you with such an advantage. Dawn has a fire background. Dawn was a fireman or a fire person. I don't know what.
Firefighter for
Firefighter.
over 20 years.
I was an EMT and a police dispatcher for like a zillion years. That's not going to be your average manager.
No.
But okay, so they're not even going to get involved with the DWI, and that's your law enforcement stuff going on. So whatever, okay? And I don't even want to touch upon that. But what I want to know is your staff, okay? Had your staff ever have to act, because you're a leader, right?
Correct.
Let's face it, okay?
Yes.
Has your staff ever had to act before first responders arrived before?
No, this is the first time they've ever had to interact in this type of situation here at the site.
Okay.
So this
and
is their.
Go ahead.
No, and they've never had to deal with, even had to call 911 at this point in their career.
Okay. And I purposely didn't have an attorney here because I didn't want to get into the legality. So audience, there's legalities with this, and we're not talking about that today. So I'm going to ask questions, and maybe legalities is proper, improper. That's up to you, audience, to figure out on your own today how far you want to take it. I know you were impressed by your staff, because I'll ask you the question anyway, though, so you can convey it to the audience. How did you feel your staff acted? And what advice would you provide a manager in the same situation? But do me a favor, Stefan. You didn't tell me you had a limited law enforcement background. Dial it back, and let's look at it from the perspective with someone with no training. What would you
I would
advise?
honestly, part of it is the biggest thing is stay calm. My team did very well in the situation. But when you're coming up, just continue to look at it, focus on what you need to accomplish, and really keep an eye on things. It's not just the staying calm part of it. It's also focusing on your personal safety as well, because you don't know what's going on in the area. Again, with the live wires down, do you have any type of hazardous material, gasoline, oil, things along those lines in the area? And then the interaction with individuals as well. So, make sure that, you're watching for those types of things.
Don, I'm going to have you in a second explain what tunnel vision is. Audience, if I could get one point across here today that you take back with you, please think of your personal safety first. I've been to a zillion accidents, and every time I drove up, I'd have to stay calm, and my personal safety came first. I looked at the whole scene, and people sometimes would be knocking on my window because I needed 10 seconds. And I would evaluate the whole scene. But there was still times, even with my training, where I found myself driving over a live wire. Dawn, talk a little bit about to our audience about tunnel vision, so our managers stay safe when they're find themselves in this situation. They may not have Stefan's background.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't have those backgrounds. You and I and Stefan, we spent a lot of time training for that. Training's important, practice. So knowing your community, where can you get in, where can you get out, establishing that dream team, working with your local professionals, police department, fire department, ask them to come in and survey your community. But the tunnel vision really happens where, you're looking only at that incident and you're not looking at anything around because you're very consumed and you're focusing on that. I want to bring something important. As a firefighter, where is our chief? Our chief is not in the burning building. Our chief is way outside so that they can see in and decide what else, as far as resources and manpower, they need to deploy. So if you're that manager, you're going to be that chief, right? Don't get in the thick of it. You need to have an outside observation. That's where you delegate duties and send in professionals to do the work. I love that Stefan mentioned that safety is priority, and there could be so many different types of situations. He mentioned chemicals, all sorts of things that you just aren't prepared for. Looking at things in tunnel vision is sometimes people rush in. We can't rush into emergency situations. We have to really pause, as you mentioned, Ray. and take a look around and see what can we do and how are our actions going to be most effective.
Stefan, I'm really glad you mentioned it also because I wasn't going to mention it about personal safety. And um, I think I'm really happy that we had time to talk about that. And Dawn's right too. Like as an EMT, the policeman's job was to watch my safety, and many times they would catch something. Um, I think that's great advice. Do you agree that Dawn gave? If you're a manager and you find yourself upon the scene, maybe you're better off being the person that stands back and starts telling people where to put cones. But by the way, watch out for this. And there's one other thing I want to mention before I forget. Be careful, audience, because if you see someone just laying in the road, I hate to say it, you don't know if they were murdered. You don't know if they were stabbed. You don't know if there's someone dangerous around. Stefan, take it from there. And do you agree with Dawn and I that the role of a manager could be, hey, I'm going to stand back?
Oh, absolutely. Depending on your staff size, if you have, 4, 5, 6 people that are available and they're helping out, that's a perfect opportunity. The manager can actually take charge. That is where they're giving direction. As far as let's call 911 again. In our situation, we actually had a little bit more that where the driver of the car got back into the vehicle and started to back up and almost hit me. So when you're in that moment, thank God I was paying attention, but you can actually have that manager who's directing other people. Call 911 again. You need to speed up the patrol car to get onto the scene, and help out. So yeah, there's that higher level if the manager was stepping back.
Another great point, Stefan, that we've never talked about in all these live streams. Never underestimate what I'll call them a victim or a patient, whatever the right term is now, is going to do. Because you don't know that this person hit the tree. You think you're going to help them. Man, they could like turn around and they could like run you over. They could shoot you. They could get
It's so
some of their
negative,
bodily.
Ray. So
What's that?
negative.
Well, Stefan,
Always look at the bad things. And here the insurance agent's about to say, I think we should actually not always assume the worst. Again, if you're going to have to identify your circumstances, see what's around. But I feel that also people are not willing to help as often. And that can be a problem as well. Refusing to assist or not calling 911. We see a lot of these videos these days where people are just taking pictures or video and you never, ever see them calling for help. And so that can be a bad situation as well.
well, that's just terrible. I mean, that's just not being a good person. I mean, dial 911 is so easy.
But
Stefan,
part of it,
go ahead.
I was going to jump in because part of it is no one did call 911. When the homeowner that came in to report it, they already said no one's called 911 yet because we're seeing a trend where a lot of people don't want to get involved. They don't want their name attached to it. They don't want to be the one, having to talk to the police department or anything. So it is very true that, a lot of people aren't jumping in.
Okay, nothing against the homeowner, but why? That's crazy that they had the time to go reach out to you and not call 911 because I mean that's absolutely. So I guess another good lesson here, right, Savon? I guess managers shouldn't assume that the people call 911 because I can see being a manager and you going into action, assuming, right? Take it from there, Stefan. You know what the point I'm trying to make, right?
Oh,
So I don't do all
absolutely.
the.
Yeah. Don't assume that, this goes back to the direction, you would rather have 2 or 3 phone calls going into the emergency dispatch center. And I'd rather have dispatcher say this has already been reported and a patrol car is en route or a fire department's en route, whatever it is, versus you're sitting there and you're like, okay, you're making an assumption. Okay, they've called 911, somebody's en route, and then there's no help coming in. And especially if it was where it was life and death, the person was seriously injured, that's a bad call. Do your due diligence as a manager, okay, and on behalf of the association, pick up the phone. Make sure you're making that phone call, and documenting the incident is so crucial in all this as well, because part of it goes back to, we're going to have to report this to our insurance or calling into the other person's insurance company as well.
Ryan, you could just jump back in. We don't have any questions, but just so you can say goodbye. I'm making another statement, Dawn. I'm going to go further. I'm going to say if you're a manager and someone comes in your office and reports that there's been an accident, I don't care what they tell you because people act weird. Even if they said they called 911, I say you should still call 911 anyway. I don't even think, Dawn, you should take their word for it because I cannot tell you how many times people have lied to other people at the accident scenes that I've been at. Dawn, are we in agreement or are you going to disagree with me on this one? You're muted and you're
Yes,
agreeing with me.
I am in agreement.
You know, Stefan, that's like great advice. You're like on fire. But we're running a little bit out of time here. Um, did you end up, did you have, I want to go really quick. Did you have any plan in place for this, Stefan?
No, we had taken over the property about 9 months ago. We're doing emergency response logs and statements. So that's running through the process right now, implementing them. But it goes back to
Okay.
it's a training exercise as well for the managers to be able to help out.
All right. Did you have any kind of debrief? Because I'm a firm believer in that. Heaven forbid for your staff, it was something where the injury was severe and somebody died or there was a child. Did you have any debrief?
Oh, absolutely. We talked about the situation, how we could do it better, things to look out for in the future if something similar to this ever happens again, what to keep an eye on, which is critical.
Lastly, what is your, well, let me go to Dawn, Stefan, so you can think for a second. I ask you for like 35 seconds of ending advice here. Okay.
Mhm.
Let me jump to Dawn while you're doing that.
Mhm.
Dawn, insurance aspects, really quick.
Well, insurance responds after, right? So that's just a defense, to provide indemnification. So all of this is really the before. There are companies in Acrisure, our company talks a lot about this, and we offer these services. There are site security services. They can come in and do an evaluation of your community, looking at your amenities, looking at all sorts of things, and give you some real good feedback. It is important to plan. Planning is just so essential, and it really prevents big mistakes from happening. So we're in hurricane season right now. Not the good time to be planning, but hey, start today if you have to.
Ryan, have you ever been involved in any kind of emergency situation?
Well, I've had a few over the years.
Okay.
I'm a former manager myself, so certainly have seen some of these items. And by the way, thank you all for your service. I've
Oh,
not served in the, but my daughter's an EMT as well. So
I think it was one of the best things I ever did, but it's back when they had volunteer EMTs. So, but anyway, all right. Stefan, the points you brought up today were not even what I expected, but I feel like they were so valuable. I really believe that. What closing thoughts? Like, what would you want to? I mean, your team acted wonderful. People should go to the link and read your post, and even the fact that you praised your team, Stefan, I thought was terrific. I mean, you seem like a great leader. You do. I mean,
Well, thank
maybe
you.
you're not. I don't know you, but so far from what I've heard and what I've read, you seem terrific. What is your advice? And remember, take away the fact that you had some previous experience in this. What is your advice to the average manager?
No matter what, first and foremost, safety is always your top precaution. Look around, take the blinders off, and stay calm. Get there, assess the situation. If it's not safe for you, do not run into it. One of the things you don't want to do is add another person that the first responders have to deal with. If it's unsafe, stay back. Make sure you communicate that to the 911 dispatch center so they can get the appropriate individuals. Is it one person, 5 people? Is it life-threatening injuries, whatever it may? So share as much information as you can with the 911 dispatch center. And then make sure you follow up, make sure you're doing the reporting, you're making sure you're looping in the board of directors so they know what took place and they're not hearing it secondhand after the fact from owners.
And then managers and board members, I just want to make you aware too, like Dawn said, don't be afraid to help. You check out the own legalities. Don't take my word for it. Even if you go and talk to that person, sometimes that's enough. Sometimes people have children in the car and you say, you know what? I'm going to keep an eye on your kid. I have kids myself. You'd be shocked how just a little bit of compassion on scene could make a huge difference for someone and keep them calm. Dawn, could you back me up on that so people understand that even though you don't have to be an EMT, you don't have to be a firefighter, you don't have to be a past policeman, just talking to someone who's sitting there in an
Talking and
accident.
having a level head. It is so
Yeah.
important to stay calm while those around you are losing their minds. I can't impress that enough.
Just say, I see you, I'm here for you, and I'm going to stay with you till help arise. And don't be surprised how many people like having their hand held. I know it sounds silly, right, Dawn? But it's not. Human touch
It's
goes a
not
long way.
silly at all.
Stevan, thank you so much today. I actually think we're going to do another topic on this. And thank you so much to your team. Ryan, it was great seeing you. Dawn, I'm probably going to see you later. We have another live stream on Thursday, all Q&A.
We do.
So I'll see you
What's
then.
that live stream again, Ray?
It's at
Just to remind
10:20.
everybody.
It's at 10:20 and it's in the trenches. It's where I pull out the hardest questions I could throw at the panel for an hour. I meant these are tricky questions. Ryan, I love stumping the panel. I love it. Not you guys, Stevan and Ryan, but the attorneys and the insurance people, the heck with them. I give them the hardest questions I could throw at them. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and I hope that I see you guys later this week. Thank you, everybody. Much
Oh, great.
appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.